Welcome back to Good Day Northern Michigan. Where do we draw the line when it comes to perceived slights against our institutions? One young woman recently found out that falling asleep inside a courtroom can have you in handcuffs.
Also, Michigan Asphalt Company being ordered to pay a $6.5 million fine for bid rigging over a 5-year period. Many believe it's only a fraction of the cost to Michigan taxpayers.
So why is it that an underage individual who fell asleep can be treated so harshly by a justice system while a company gets off with a perceived slap on the wrist for defrauding taxpayers for half a decade? These complicated issues way above our head, and that's why we invite back to the show attorney Jamie White. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. So,
Sure.
First things first, big headlines. The team that was handicapped for falling handcuffed,
yep.
For falling asleep in a courtroom. What is this situation? Could you kind of elaborate on this for us?
I will try, but his behavior, his being the judge, I'm not going to say his name on the air. It's extremely public at this point in time, but it's despicable what he did, and quite frankly, unheard of. I know that the circuit court chief judge, which is sort of the boss of the judges in any particular courtroom, has ordered him to some training, but I do believe he has some other problems. You know, in Michigan, we have two basic administrative bodies that deal with the misbehavior of lawyers and the misbehavior of judges. The judges, it's called the Judicial Tenure Commission, and he's going to have a lot of work to do with them. And I, quite frankly, would be surprised if he ever wears a robe again, because, you know, we've all seen on television and heard judges threaten, and really even this has disappeared when a litigant, you know, somebody involved in a case becomes unruly and they say, well, I'm going to duct tape your mouth and that sort of thing. But even that has really gone by the wayside. You know, I'm a contributor to Court TV, and there was a gentleman who was representing himself. He became quite out of control. And finally, the judge just ordered him into a different room to watch the hearing in a Zoom setting. Mm-hmm. This young woman was not only a non-litigant, she was a member of the public in a public courtroom on a field day for which the purpose of was to learn about how to get involved with the law. So this is the experience she takes away. You know, the trauma she suffered that day must have been extraordinary. Normally, guys, courts have absolute immunity for the behavior that they take in the course of their official duties, you know, whether it be a police, a judge, a prosecutor, and so on. You know, I'm not a big advocate. You know, I'm a pro-blue guy. My brother's a retired state cop, but this judge, he's stepped way over the line, and why he chose to pick on this young girl, I don't know. But I can tell you right now, I've been doing this 25 years. People fall asleep in the back of courtrooms all the time. Sometimes the lawyers fall asleep, you know. So, you know, there has to be more to this story, but he certainly has a lot more explaining to do.
Yeah, he almost,
as we go through this process.
I mean, one of the comments I remember hearing, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but something to the effect of, you know, almost like we need to make an example of her. This is not how you behave in a courtroom. But again, to your point, I mean, 15-year-old on a school field trip, not even involved in whatever the court hearing was, put her in handcuffs and the prison jumpsuit and just stand there. I'm curious your take on, and I don't remember the exact dollar amount of the damages here, but you know, the family now, the mother is suing. And the whole point that Eric and I brought up when this first came out last week was there's got to be more to this. Turns out the family was homeless. Mom said she was tired because she doesn't have a bed to sleep in. I guess multiple part question here, Jamie. I mean, does the reason, quote unquote, matter? And also just the dollar amount of the lawsuit. I'm a little bit torn between the, I think it's a multi-million-dollar suit, between that and just kind of the arbitrary, these are my damages, versus the excessive actions of the judge. So
the suit is in federal court, and just as a general rule, any claim has to be at least $75,000 or more. That's just in order to file a claim in federal court. What ultimately happens will be the actual damages, which I'm presuming that, I don't know, I suspect they have her in counseling and, you know, trying to figure out if in fact there's any permanent trauma or even acute trauma. And then, there's also the issue of punitive damages, which could come into play in a case like this. So, and to your second question, the circumstances certainly are important. Again, judges can get away with quite a bit. I've seen some really embarrassing behavior on the part of judges during the course of them doing their duties, but it didn't rise to the level of what we call a 1983 claim. I think the lawyers get through that barrier on this one, and I think they get their day in court. And what a jury decides to do is what a jury decides to do. But this is really above the pale.
Yeah. Now we only have about 2 minutes left, so I'd love to kind of shift to the other end of the spectrum, a case where a lot of people feel as though not enough is being done to reprimand a company that has been ordered to pay $6.5 million due to bid rigging. So quick background for people out there who may not know, Asphalt Company located here in Michigan was having behind the scene conversations with other asphalt companies, deciding who was going to win the bid, and then all bidding way higher than the actual worth of the jobs. What do you think happened here?
Yeah, so I know exactly what happened. It's been going on since the dawn of time, and I don't want to get my car blown up, but it seems to be particular oftentimes with construction companies, sanitary companies, and so on. But the harm that's suffered here is really incalculable because these costs are passed along to the customers ultimately, because what's happening is these men or women, apparently in this case it was men, they're picking and choosing their contracts through collusion, and then they're able to plan, when they're going to need the materials, where they're going to get the materials. And so they have this huge competitive advantage to other people, and they are, for sure are charging what they want to do when they know that they're in charge of the bid, and that ultimately is getting passed on to the customers. So unbelievably, guys, this is very rarely charged anymore. I think last year I saw there were maybe 13 in the country of this sort of collusion charge. So maybe this case brings more attention to the issue, but it's been happening since we had the wheel. Yeah. And it's something that people should take very seriously.
Jamie, I have more questions on this too, but we're just about out of time. Really appreciate you being with us here on Good Day Northern Michigan. Thanks so much for joining us, and appreciate your insight.
It's always a pleasure. Take care, guys.
Hey,
you too,
our
Jamie.
pleasure as well. You take care.
Yeah.